Yes, break.
Because it was time for Richard Childress to enter the courtroom.
A lot of anticipation. Like, not MJ level, because nothing is going to get to MJ level, but there's a lot courtroom was pretty crowded again. A lot of people want to see this. People filled.
The Dillon brothers were both there.
Both the Dillon brothers there. Some leadership from RCR was there. There was a little bit of like excitement.
Yeah. So we learn right away, I think we knew this, but we get it confirmed right away that Richard Childress, from what I can tell, did not do any sort of prep work with the plaintiffs, because Danielle Williams, who is doing his examination, says, "It's nice to meet you." So they clearly didn't like get these questions beforehand or rehearse answers or say, "We're going to ask you this," or anything like that.
Very on brand for Richard.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just going to say what I want to say here. So first I asked him how you got started. And I'd like to take a few minutes to tell the jury the story, if you don't mind. Which of course nobody did. Oops, my recording just dropped.
You go and grab it.
I've
been around NASCAR for 60 years and seen a lot.
He did say that. So he also said that, he tells a story of how he sold peanuts and popcorn at Bowman Gray Stadium. He bought an old $20 race car, a 47 Plymouth, best investment he's ever made. He starts racing, and of course, as you guys know the story, 1969, the Talladega Driver Association boycott. Bill France Sr., he was racing another race that day. Bill France Sr. says, "Boys, we need you to race." Now, Childress gets objected to here for hearsay. And the judge says, "I don't think he's offering this for the truth." And the judge says, "I've heard this story before myself."
But then everybody starts laughing in the courtroom.
Right.
And then Childress says, "I'd laugh, but I didn't hear it."
Yes. And Bell says to Childress, "Well, people just do that when a judge talks." So he gets $2,000 from this Talladega race. And he says he feels like he's so rich, he's never gonna have to work again.
Yep.
Obviously we know the story. He ultimately puts Dale Earnhardt Sr. in the car. They win 6 championships. You guys know there was talked about in many documentaries and things. There was a trip to New Mexico that they were on, hunting trip, and they agreed that if anything ever happened to Dale, that he would go on. Lost his friend, but here he's still in it. 60 years, and I've given it my all and did everything I could for the sport, he says. So, of course, now we're on to the financial model. Says, we've lost money. We have to have charters. He says he has other businesses, and if it wasn't for that, ... right? He wants everybody to know that we were negotiating a better contract. It didn't happen like we wanted. Steve Phelps called us and said, "Sign this or you lose the charters." Once they gave us no other option, we had to sign them. He says he signed them at about 8 p.m. on that infamous September 6th day, but he would not have signed those charters if he didn't have to, because they're a blue-collar operation. So they bring up now a letter that he sent to Jim France. There's 4 key issues. Of course, the charter length is one of the issues. He says, by far and away, the most important to me is making the charters extend indefinitely, because he really wants to have a permanent franchise that you can build enterprise value with and pass on to his grandchildren. They say, has RCR lost money on its cup teams? Yes. He says, I would love to see RCR running 60 years from now, but with this model, we can't do it. Again, he feels like it wouldn't cost NASCAR nothing to give us franchises. He talks about how in PBR, some of the franchises for that league, professional bull riding, which of course they own a team, some of the franchise values have gone from $3 million to $45 million because they're permanent, he believes. So again, he also asks for the 4 pillars like everybody else, right? And this is from April 2024. This letter, which remember this date for a little bit later, okay? April 2024 is a letter that he wrote to Jim France, okay? Anyway, so they ask him if he recalls having any actual conversations with Jim France. He says several times as we would talk, I'd ask about permanent charters, and he would say, we don't know where the sport is going to be in 7 years related to media rights. And Richard Childress tells him, look, let's have a percentage together then. Like, if you go up, we go up. If you go down, we go down. He said these teams, we're telling him plain, we will work to make it, we will make it stronger if we all work hard and push hard together. And he really wanted to be in a partnership with Jim France, but it felt like it was falling on deaf ears.
And one of the conversations they had, Jeff, was a Sunday, I believe. That's what it says, Sunday after Richmond 2024.
What happened in that race?
I think Austin Dillon won, didn't he? It was pretty boring, I think.
Jim France came to Richard Childress's office in Welcome, North Carolina after their Richmond race and says, you guys pulled a 7-11. I think he means a 7-10 split.
Yeah, because he says it looked like bowling balls out there.
So a 7-11, 7-10 split, whatever.
I thought he meant like a 7-11. I thought like you robbed, like 7-11.
But then he says bowling.
Then he says bowling. He talks about the pins, and I'm like, oh, he meant 7-10. So,
but then he says, by the way, that Jim France said that finish was the best thing that happened in NASCAR, which
people were talking. That's what he said.
Yeah. So, but then they had a conversation about family, the sport. He told him the model's broken, and one of the last things he asked for was permanent charters. Let's be partners and move forward. They said, what happened if you didn't sign? He said they told us we had until 12 or we lose him. Financially, what did you say? He'll be out of business.
Yep.
If they lose their charters, not capable of carrying this business without charters. So now NASCAR is going to cross-examine Richard Childress, right? And spoiler alert, it doesn't go well necessarily because Richard Childress is a total wild card, and you don't know, he's not going to answer in a traditional way to the questions that you're asking.
Let me pretend to be the lawyer here, real quick. I'm going to ask you this. You be RC, okay?
Okay.
Richard, how much did the charters cost NASCAR? They gave them to you for free, right?
No, we paid for our life with it. Or we paid our life for it.
Yeah.
That's sorry, I wasn't at that part.
No, sorry.
All right, so he's even so if you remember, Richard Childress and a bunch of other people submitted declarations on behalf of NASCAR before the trial started. And Richard Childress's declaration said that he wants permanent charters and he thinks they're very important. So Chris Yates, the NASCAR attorney who's cross-examining him, starts reading his declaration, and he doesn't get to the part with the permanent charters, and he starts moving on. So Richard Childress goes, read the rest of it if you could. And Yates is like, no, of course we know that you go on to say permanent charters. And he says, yeah, that's the reason I want you to try to read it for the jury. So then Yates is like, oh, of course we understand that you want this. And
trying to sidetrack.
Yeah. But they had him read that part, I guess. He talked about, Richard says, this is the draft that you sent us to sign. So like they sent him, he basically says NASCAR sent them this declaration for him to sign. And Yates says, and you changed it. And Richard Childress is like, yeah, I put in there that we needed permanent charters. Like, I'm not going to just sign my name to whatever you told me to do.
That's not how RC rolls.
And then they said, now, wait a minute. You talked about professional bull riding and you said franchises. You know, franchises means you own part of the league, right? And because he's thinking he's going to be a gotcha on that. And he says, yeah, we've offered that to Mr. France. And it's like, oh, you did? When? He's like, I'm going way back in time, but we've offered that before. And then he says the line that you said, right? Like, 2016, you didn't pay any money for these charters, right? No, we paid our life for it, though. And
just silence.
Yeah.
Like, you're just silence in the courtroom for a minute.
I write down here, Yates is dealing with a totally unpredictable witness. He says, do you agree that the charter system, he's just trying to get some basic, just some little singles for NASCAR right here, right? Just some little base hits to try to get Childress to admit some positive things. Like, do you agree that the charter system has given the team, has helped build its long-term equity with the teams? Well, it moved from 10 cents on the dollar to some value, but nothing like it could be if it was permanent. It's nothing where it should be compared to the blood, sweat, and tears we've put into it. It's keeping us alive is all it's doing right now. So again, not the answer that Yates was looking for at all, right?
And then Yates shifts tracks and says, "You're a blue collar team." Okay.
This was good.
Yeah, you're a blue collar team, right? Okay, well, you've got how many acres is your shop on? 70. You've got 13 buildings on there. You have a state of the art shop for both your Cup and Xfinity Series teams. 400,000 square feet.
And then he says, he says for the in that space though, I have my other businesses that pay the bills for NASCAR. The only reason we're profitable, Otherwise, that money should be going into my bank account because they have military manufacturing, stuff like that. He said all that money could be going to his bank account, but instead he's got to spend it on keeping his NASCAR business afloat with his other businesses.
Yes. Now
we get into a part that is not very pleasant for Richard Childress. And this may be coming back up in court because this was I don't know, say
spicy.
I was going to say a dirty tactic or something.
No, it's dirty. I mean, it's if you're going to talk about how you're committed to this sport and you're in this and you're not, you know.
Oh, no, I was talking about the NDA.
Yeah, but like you're talking, but it relates to what I'm saying is like, it's okay to say to somebody like, but you're thinking of leaving though.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
There was just we'll get into it.
Yeah.
So they say to Richard Childress, what percent of Richard Childress Racing do you own? He's like, well, I don't really think I'm supposed to say that. And they're like, no, you're under oath. You must answer the question. So he said, okay, I own 60% of RCR. Chartwell Investments or whatever.
Yeah, Chartwell Investments.
The other owns the other 40%, I guess. So they say, have you heard of Bobby Hillin Jr.? Yes, I have. He's a successful businessman. Well, I don't know how successful he is, but he's successful. Okay.
Which is a great line because we'll find out here in a minute why.
So they say, what's Project Ruffino, right? So it turns out there's this Project Ruffino. It's a code name for what Bobby Hillin Jr. is trying to do, which is to buy part of RCR. First, he says, my partners are the ones who've been wanting out for the last 4 or 5 years. And then they say, well, and you are also trying to sell some portion of the team, right? And he says, yes. Say, didn't you tell Bobby Hillin Jr. and that you've had a positive EBITDA for every single year in company history? So basically, you've been profitable for 60 years? He says, I would be broke if I was just doing the company or the Cup teams.
The Cup teams, yep.
Yeah, there's other businesses under RCR that is why we're profitable. Like we sell engines, stuff like that, right? And then he goes, he signed an NDA, so I don't think we should be talking about this. How is this? How did you find this, right? And then they say, didn't you have $123 million in revenue for RCR in 2024 and $70 million in revenue for your racing operations? And so all these start to get objected to. Objection. That's not on there. That gets sustained. Objection, sustained. Because this is getting more into the personal finances, which it's supposed to be off limits for all the owners to talk about, I guess. He says every bit of this has nothing to do with this case. Whoever got this could be liable because he had an NDA. They say, didn't RCR had a 29% revenue increase, like all this stuff. Anyway, he interrupts and he says, listen, yeah, I was thinking about doing something with Bobby Hillin Jr., but I sent him a termination letter a few weeks ago because they didn't have the money, period. They were like, he was basically saying they were just
they weren't as successful as they were tough to be. And that was that.
So that was the end of Richard Childress.
NDAs, man.
Yeah. So by the way, we'll get into it, but we can just say it now. So at the end of the day, the plaintiffs are like, this was an exhibit they had brought up. They never showed us a surprise. And we also need to, we would like to know where they got that NDA from, because I think I'm sure Childress was like, I'm sure he got out of court and was like, what the hell?
Yeah. Sources.